Today, I am excited to introduce two extraordinary women. One you know, and one you're going to get to know in the next hour. Esther is often referred to as a guru. I've known her for a very long time. We've been friends a very long time. I've been to PC Forum 4 times that I can remember. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to say about her, to introduce her, that you didn't already know, I was trying to think of a source that you didn't already Google, and I found this. And of course, I looked at the index and found the paragraph I'm going to read you. And you'll see why. When I first met her, she was already something of a curator, although probably she didn't use that word back in 2004. What she did was bring together a remarkable mix of speakers, guests, and attendees at what was perhaps the most groundbreaking technology conference of its time, PC Forum. Now Dyson is focused mostly on 2 areas of interest: space exploration and the related fields of healthcare and genetics. Now, that was some time ago. This book is 11 years old, and her interests have changed somewhat. But you know, I've never, for all the years we've known each other, I've never introduced her to a room like this. So, here's a quote. She's hosted Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Larry Page, Jeff Bezos, Michael Dell, Perry Barlow, and Mark Zuckerberg. She will probably add some names to that list. Quote, "The DNA of news and truth has been corrupted by money-hungry metabolism of media and as entertainment," says Dyson, taking aim at a business model that prioritizes profits over truth and accuracy. I think you're going to hear some about that tonight. Now, that brings me to the woman that you don't know, but will in a moment, or some of you do. Raziya Palmer is a 10th grader at Success Academy of Liberal Arts in Harlem. She's 15 years old. I met Raziya at the mayor's convening of Teens on Mental Health. The Surgeon General's report had come out the day before, and she rocked the room with her focus on the commitment to build a better world for Gen Z. Quote, "We can't have a great future unless leaders are able to stay healthy mentally," she said. I walked up to her afterwards. I did that thing I never do, and walked up to her when she walked off the stage, handed her my card. She emailed me. We've been friends ever since. And what Esther and Raziya have in common, although after tonight they will have more in common, is that they are both members of the advisory board of the Sustainable Media Center, which we collectively lead. So I'm proud to share both of them with you, and our mission at the center is to change misaligned incentives in media and to embrace a future where media platforms don't profit by amplifying hate, misinformation, racism, and misogynism. So with that, I'm honored to be in the company of these women. I hope you'll join me in welcoming Esther Dyson and Raziya Palmer.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. If you couldn't tell, I'm Raziya. This is Esther.
Yeah, I think so.
So I hope that you guys are all having a great afternoon, and I hope you guys also take away a lot of good points from this conversation, and I also hope you don't fall asleep, because I don't want that to happen. I don't think anybody wants that to happen.
And it's, you know, we didn't really decide who asks the first question of the other one. So I'm going to ask you. And you probably know quite a few people, and they all have very different opinions. Mm-hmm. But just talk a little bit about how your generation, your cohort, whatever you want to call it, how do they think about the news? Do they distinguish it from kind of what their friends are up to, or?
So I think it's definitely a lot different depending on each person. I've had a lot of different experiences with a lot of different friends. And I can say that some some of my friends at least have gotten tricked by false media on platforms such as TikTok, Instagram, and others do try and find multiple resources to check their facts and make sure that the news that they're reading is, I guess, correct or very accurate. I will say that most of my friends, though, do get majority of their news either from CNN 10 like I do or social media, which I don't think is that good of a thing, but, we can work on that.
You think most of your friends get their news from CNN?
No, most of my friends get their news from social media. Some of them do get it from CNN 10 like I do, but majority of them get it from social media.
But this was interesting when we talked earlier, and I didn't go into it further. I can imagine, I'm just interested that CNN in particular versus anything from the New York Times to Fox News to, why CNN?
It's really reliable. I signed up for like a little subscription, which is free. And if you don't know, high school kids are broke, me being one of them. So getting news from CNN 10 from a subscription every morning, being able to catch up with like 5 things in the news is a lot easier to do than to read a New York Times article, go into depth about it, and then like try and understand some of the points that might be a little bit more complicated. And especially in our limited time that we have in advisory for high school, it's just a lot easier to read a CNN 10 article instead of a New York Times article.
And so are most of your friends, the ones that do get news, they mostly get it from CNN?
Yeah, I kind of was brought up on CNN 10 as well. Like in my middle school, we would have CNN 10 play in advisory, and it would just be like 10 minutes. And I don't know the name of the person, but there was this one guy that was on there. He made everything really, really fun, really, really enjoyable and exciting. Yeah.
Interesting. And if CNN went away, what would you use?
That's a good question. I do not know. I would probably have to figure out like a new source to use, like that's free, for obvious reasons.
Interesting. I see a real market for at least half-price news for high school kids. Or how do you identify? As a high school kid or as a charter school kid? Or
I kind of just identify as like a high school student who's in high school. I am in high school. I feel like once you're in a school for a long enough time, all the grades kind of blend together. That's how it was in elementary, that's how it was in middle, and I feel like that's definitely how it's gonna be in high school. I've only been in high school for 2 weeks, and it feels like I've been there for a good 2 months at this point, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And among your friends, are you one of the more news conscious ones?
Surprisingly, no.
Good.
Yeah. I do have a couple more friends that are really big into news, like one of my friends, Blue, and I think there's another one of my friends that's really into news. I can't really confirm that though because they don't really speak about it a lot, but I do see them sometimes read a bit of articles. So, and then there's also me. So yeah.
Interesting. And what got you into this whole discussion in the first place?
So I struggled with my mental health when I was younger, especially during the COVID pandemic, and I turned to social media to help me with that. Sucks to say that didn't work. It actually kind of made it worse.
How?
I was in my house majority of the time, which there's like a lot of personal stuff that I won't be sharing, yeah. But I will say that it wasn't the best environment. And I kind of went on social media to like kind of escape from that, but I ended up finding myself staying in my bed or staying in my room for like 5 hours, 6 hours at a time just scrolling on TikTok, watching videos. And it felt like I didn't really have anything to do other than just watch videos. I promise you, even though it doesn't sound that bad, once you do that for a consecutive amount of months, it gets tiring, it can get emotionally draining, and I ended up just falling into a spiral of depression. And then also online, a lot of people were sharing their stories about feeling depressed, or just feeling hopeless, or feeling a lot of anxiety during the pandemic, and that also amplified those feelings. So, yeah.
And how much did you sort of understand what was happening to you?
At that time, I feel like I understood it to, like, I understood a good amount. I understood that I wasn't doing well mentally. Like, I understood, like, I wasn't how I was from before. Like, I wasn't really energetic anymore.
You weren't.
I wasn't how I was before. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't really energetic anymore. I didn't feel like doing anything. I just felt really down. I just didn't want to move. Sometimes I wanted to stay in my room. I kind of kept the blinds closed at other times. So I could definitely see that some things were changing for the negative. And I didn't like that. So I
But you blamed it on yourself rather than on the media.
For a period of time, yes, I did. And then I deleted TikTok. And who would have thought? I actually got better. My mental health got better. I was like, wow. I actually stepped outside, opened the blinds, saw the sun. I was like, wow, I was really missing out on this vitamin D. This is crazy. I started painting, went outside on the porch, walked. I actually started appreciating the small things. And I was like, wow, this is nice. I should have done this before.
And so when did you sort of put two and two together and think, this wasn't me, it was them?
Probably like a couple months after like the pandemic had stopped. Like I took a really long break from social media. Like I deleted my Snapchat, deleted my TikTok. I didn't have Instagram at the time, so I was mostly like, I might have been on Netflix or YouTube, but I wasn't really on it that much. And I realized like after a couple months, like, oh wow, I kind of returned back to the person who I was before the pandemic. I was really energetic again. I was a lot more happy. And I was like, I don't think that was only me. I think that might have been, the stuff I was watching, the social medias. And that's when I really started like thinking about like, maybe I want to do something about it, but I hadn't really gone into like stuff like how I was now, like how I'm speaking with you or going to the event for teens against social media and stuff. Or like, not against social media, but like against negative connotations on social media.
And that's where you met Steve and your life changed.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
So, presumably, like all of us, you've run into people who are addicted to drugs.
Yes.
And did you notice the similarities between that and your relationship with TikTok? This is called a leading question, by the way. She's planning to be a lawyer.
I mean, I grew up around people who were very, I guess, very drug heavy. I don't think I saw any similarities because they were adults, so they would hide stuff from the kids. They weren't gonna show when they were upset or feeling down. I did grow up in a Caribbean family though, so when they got upset, but they weren't gonna show you when they're feeling depressed or sad or any of those things. They would just hide it to themselves, be happy, maybe cook, clean. So I couldn't really like, I guess, compare them to each other because I don't have enough information from them to compare it. But yeah.
Would you say you'd make that comparison now?
I would say, I'm just inferring based on like the amount of like what I saw. I would say that they were probably going through a lot. They were probably really depressed and obviously didn't want to show it to the kids because why would you want to show your kids that, oh yeah, I'm depressed, I'm down. why would you want to show your cousins that? Like, you don't want to expose that to your younger cousins, your younger siblings, your younger family. But based on how much I saw them like use drugs, I was just like, yeah, that they probably were feeling a bit down, and that's probably the only thing that they could have gone to. Now comparing that to like how I was with TikTok and social media, I think it was probably a lot similar. Obviously, I didn't have as hard of a time as they did because drugs are a lot worse than social media by a large margin, and I strongly believe that, especially excessive use of drugs. So please don't do drugs. Do books or something. Do crochet. Nothing that's gonna hurt you internally or externally. Yes.
And so, we'll leave that, but thanks. The others, actually, we won't leave it. The one other thing about addiction is there are people whose job it is to try and get you addicted because it makes money.
Oh, no, absolutely. I know that.
And do you get that sense? I mean, how much do you feel you were being manipulated by somebody who wanted to sell you ads or make you feel inadequate so you'd buy more clothes or whatever?
Honestly, I'll say one thing. It's hard for me to like actually like follow ads like that tell me like buy clothes or do this, because I'm not really that big of a spender. I don't really spend anything on my clothes. My mom picks out my clothes. Love you, Mom. But I mean, when it came to ads like about like, oh, are you feeling down? Are you feeling depressed? Do you feel this way or that way? I feel like those really brought me in, and they would be like, oh yeah, you should do this, you should do that, you should think about this, you should try this. And it was like, oh, maybe I would try that, maybe I should try this, maybe I should think about this, maybe I should go get this app. So I think they target the things that they see you struggle with, or at least like you're on most of the time, and then they kind of reel you in from there. They're just like, yeah, I got that one. Yeah.
I hope we recorded that in the camera.
So please be careful with what you do on social media or like what you watch on social media. You remember those cookies you accept? They're not cookies for you. They're cookies for those people who want the advertisements. Be very careful. I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you for the announcement.
No problem.
So what do you want to do about it?
Honestly, I don't really have a set plan. I mean, I've kind of just been getting into like trying to think about like what I can do to change, just like how toxic social media has become now. But I'd probably want to try and find ways or like promote sites that do strive for a more positive version of social media. I know that I believe that there was this one person that was at the conference that had created an app that restricts a lot of things that are seen as toxic on social media, like misogyny. They're really big on like blocking misogyny or racism, like hatred, a lot of those things that are very toxic on like really big social media sites. So I think like promoting sites like that would be really good. And also like reaching out to kids in ways that they will actually want to listen. Because I promise you, even though you guys are very interested in sitting down, listening to this conversation, you put some kids from my school here and they will go straight to their phones and not care about it or how you feel. So I think just like how those cookies, they target you, I think we can maybe implement that strategy with positive things. I did see that TikTok added a new side, like a new feature. I think I saw it on my best friend's app best friend's phone, because I don't have TikTok anymore. I stopped using that a long time ago. But they had like the STEM feature, I guess, to promote like study activity. So I think that would be really good if we could implement that on the For You page. But instead of like being things like STEM or something, it could be like positive things, like maybe I don't know, maybe you like watching people feed horses or something. I don't know what you guys like in your free time, but like things that won't promote negative things in your mind. They won't promote negative emotions or negative ideas. I mean, you can be pretty much anything. I mean, everybody's interested in a lot of different things, but as long as it's not like something that's going to make you feel like depressed or like feel a lot, I don't know, a lot more isolated, I think that would be something I want to do. Obviously, I don't know like how to actually implement those things, or I haven't really gone more into depth about like what I want to do, because like I said, I'm just starting out in this, but I definitely over the years, I definitely want to figure out something so I can implement this as fast as possible.
And so I don't actually know who's in the audience and what they're interested in, but they're clearly older than you.
Yes.
And probably
No offense.
younger than me. What should they know about your generation that they might be missing?
So please, take no offense to the things I'm about to say. I don't know what is going to come out of my mouth, but I promise you, I don't mean it to be offensive. Kids, they don't like speaking to y'all. I promise you, like the kids in my generation at least, they don't like sitting down and having long conversations about, oh, you shouldn't be watching this, you shouldn't be watching that, this promotes that. Kids are, like teenagers especially, are like in this era where they're developing. And if you know one thing about teenagers, you know that they can be very rebellious, especially when you tell them one thing. If you tell them to do one thing, they're going to do the complete opposite. So telling them not to do one thing is probably going to just make them want to do it even more. So I think instead of telling them what to do, or like telling them, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, or let's take away this social media app, or let's make sure that you can't watch this, they'll find, I promise you, these kids are smart. I've seen some things that I didn't even know I could do. I've seen some things I didn't even know kids could do. I was like, okay, they'll find ways. They will find ways. They're smart. They're a lot smarter than they look. Instead of like telling them what to do, you can probably start to slowly implement it into their lives. If you have kids yourself, you can start to slowly implement it into their lives. Like, oh, you know what? Instead of being on your phone today, all day, maybe you could spend like 15 minutes, I don't know, watching TV. I don't care what you put on, as long as there's not no ticky-tacky, no, none of that. Just watch TV, just watch television. You can roam around the house for all I care. You can walk around the house, you can run around the house, you can run in the playground, the backyard. I don't really know, feed a dog or something. Touch some grass, like people like to say, like kids like to say. But like something other than being on social media, and like slowly implementing that more and more and more. You can add more time onto that. So like instead of, oh, maybe you're on social media for an hour today. Let's spend 5 minutes outside, or let's play a game or something. Because I promise you, kids like to do active things. If you like to challenge their mind, if you like to challenge their things, like if you understand what your kid is interested in or what kids are interested in, you can really like use that to your advantage and get them off of sites that you may think are negative. Like I really liked puzzles when I was growing up. I don't know why, but I really, really, really liked puzzles. Instead of watching like YouTube or TikTok or the rest of those sites, my mom probably would have given me a puzzle and been like, oh, hey, I bought a new puzzle. You want to solve it? And I'd spend like a good 2 hours solving it. Or if your kid is, like kids you have or know are very interested in video games, I mean, they can play on video games. It's not like it's social media, but like implementing that or something, or maybe finding like more physical things that are similar to video games would be a lot easier. Or if they like singing or dancing, like really tap into their interest and then use that to then find more productive things that they can do, or more positive things that they can do. Or maybe you can be like, oh, well, I know you like dancing. I found this one video about dancing. I found this one site about dancing. I saw this one dancing crew, or this one like singing crew. I promise you, if you like start to tell them these things, instead of being on social media and looking at garbage, which I've seen some kids look at absolute nonsense and be like, what are you watching? I heard this sound on TikTok talking about some Lancy or Lancy. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But you know, like they'll probably start looking at those things. Like, oh, I really think I might be interested in this one crew. Let me search it up on TikTok. Guess what happens? It gets recommended. Oh, I really like this dance crew. Let me search it up on TikTok. Oh, it gets recommended. And guess what happens when it gets recommended? Other things that are similar to that get recommended. And that's how you just slowly filter out the negative things in the For You page or the negative things in the social media sites and start to add more positive things that the kids will probably be interested onto their social media sites.
And, Steve, go ahead.
Go ahead, and then we're going to start audience Q&A.
Great, that would be wonderful. Just one quickie. How much useful would it be to talk more about TikTok's business model and how they are trying to manipulate you, as opposed to what you were talking about, which was how you can manipulate yourself?
That is a great question. Like I said, I haven't had TikTok in a couple of years. I know my friends,
Just from
like
your
social
knowledge
media,
of how your friends behave.
I'd say when it comes to my best friend, I mean, she has a lot of positive things on her feed. She's like ahead of the game, ahead of the curve on the things like of social media. But when it comes to like my younger friends, like kids who go to my church and stuff, I see that a lot of like I said, nonsense is kind of promoted to them. Like I checked one of one of the younger guys' phones in my church. I was like, let me just look through your TikTok page. Let me see what you're really looking at. And the stuff I saw was like atrocious. I'm just like, you could be spending your time doing something productive. I don't know, feeding a cow. I don't know what you like to do, but like something other than watching nonsense. And that's what these sites will continue to promote to your kids. Absolute nonsense, absolute garbage, because guess what? That sells. It's a lot easier to get addicted to. It's a lot easier to digest. So unless you actually start to find ways to then relate to these kids and then find ways to push things that are more productive or more positive into the things that they go on multiple times a day, I promise you'll see them one day waking up, you'll hear some nonsense coming out their mouth, waking up in the morning and hear some Lancia. I'm telling you, I've heard it before. It's not it. I promise you.
Okay. Thanks. Steve, go ahead. You can moderate us now.
All right, so we have questions from the audience. Oh, but you're way up there.
I know, can you hear me, Esther?
We're recording though. Hold on.
Yeah. She can shout. I know her. Come have a seat.
Okay, so my question, Esther, is when Obama was running for office in 2018, and this was when Facebook was coming up and Jack Dorsey had Twitter. Did you ever, were you ever in a position to talk to these people? Because I think you were at one point maybe on some type of advisory committee to him about, here's the negative impact of what massive social media platforms can do, and you should think about stopping them?
Sorry, no. I mean, it was becoming pretty obvious already that they were manipulative, but the short answer is no. I was not on his advisory committee, and I wish I had been, but...
Sorry, I thought you were on some type of like influential seat with him, but did you... Okay, maybe the
Yes.
Social Dilemma on Netflix. I don't
Yes.
think you've seen it, but... Oh, okay. So then when all of the social media platforms were starting to rise up, did you ever think that they would be as addictive as they are today,
Okay.
and that these companies would
Now
target
I can ask,
high schoolers
answer.
like they are? Okay.
I started using the addiction metaphor quite a while ago, partly because I'd seen a lot of that in Russia as well with alcohol. And at first I thought it was kind of a clever metaphor, but now I believe, in a sense, our biggest social problem as a country is addiction. It's the short-term craving for relief from some kind of anxiety, whether it's drugs or alcohol, or if you're a VC, it's exits. You stop caring about building a business for the long term. You want an exit. And I hate to say this, but if you're a community organization, which is who I work with a lot now, they're addicted to short-term grants. And the dealers in that case are the philanthropies that make 5 little community food banks compete with one another, and then they give them a year's worth of something, and so they keep going back to the trough, but they never get off this treadmill to create long-term change. And with kids, it's TikTok, but it's the toxic relationship between you and this thing that, for whatever reason, you start to crave. And when it's extreme, you forget your family, you forget your past, you have no agency for the future. And it's not binary, so there's, no, people don't kind of leave their families for Facebook usually, but it's the relationship, it's not the substance.
I had a question as well. Sure. I had a question for Esther. Obviously right now there's a lot of talk, and it's come in and out around the ban on TikTok from a foreign policy standpoint. I'm curious your thoughts, because for myself, that's like borderline Gen Z. It's fascinating to see this generation not care so much about foreign affairs and their nefarious purposes. And many, I would say, actually prefer that versus Meta from what I've seen, which is really fascinating to see. I'm curious, whether you feel that is something that will actually be implemented versus this, flashy arrow of strength that we're trying to position. Do you feel like policymakers will implement these guidelines, and how that will impact other players coming in within social media?
Guidelines, forgive me, I don't understand what you're talking about, banning TikTok because of China, or guidelines?
Yeah, just China.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there's lots of different guidelines being proposed, and that's part of the problem. And it's the same with AI. The problem is less the stuff out there and more people's vulnerability to it. We need to do a better job of raising children. We need to have kids be aware of how they're being manipulated. They need to hear from you, not from somebody they don't pay attention to. And because if we don't fix the underlying problem of people feeling alienated and insecure and losing their sense of agency, they'll get addicted to whatever's around them. And the businesses will take advantage of that, because businesses are addicted initially to profits and then to IPOs and whatever. But the problem is the business models and the fact that we, number one, don't understand them, and 2, we don't have a culture that fights back in favor of human beings versus, oh yes, the market will take care of it.
Thank you.
Thanks for those earlier comments. They sort of set the stage for what I want to ask you. So Esther, you as a VC and as an investor have to be good at what you do, you have to understand human nature. You have to understand the market. You have to understand how business works. You have to understand the structure of global and American society. And if you are ignorant in one of those areas, you can make really big mistakes. So I always wonder when we're going up to fight these challenges in social media, whether we are looking too narrowly at something that I don't have the answer to, but it seems systemic. So we talked about incentives earlier, and you talked about driving people to look at better stuff. The way you make money in society is you give them what they desire. And we now have technologies that give people the experiences and the information they desire, really constantly and instantly. And they get better and better at it, meaning it knows more of what you desire maybe than we do ourselves. This was kind of the trajectory for centuries of what we wanted to deliver to people in quote-unquote business. You then have a society which is also devoted to freedom. So we say, oh, we want people to not be told what to do, except when we see people doing something that we think is horrible. So we have that going on. I could go on, but you get the idea that we have these system and desires that are so incentivized to be perfectly matched with what social media does and what people consume in it, that do you believe that there is a way that you've thought, that people have thought of, that could even make a dent that doesn't restrict either the system or the desires of people?
So first of all, to make money investing, you also have to be lucky. And people make a lot of money without knowing half of what you listed, just to be honest. I've been lucky, and sometimes I've been smart, sometimes I've been unlucky. But just to frame that separately. Yes, as I said, the real problem is people, Danny Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, that I'm not saying stuff that's original, but the fact is people have short-term desires and long-term desires, and they're very vulnerable to being seduced by the short-term craving reduction kind of stuff. And one good way to describe it is addiction is when you do something that you know you will regret later, whether it's eating too much or staying up all night watching TikTok when you should be doing your homework. And the challenge is getting kids to think long term, to feel secure enough so that they don't grab the first marshmallow and are willing to wait for the second marshmallow. And it's habits, it's training, and yes, all these new business models exploit that vulnerability and that susceptibility. But people also desire the long-term stuff. They just keep getting distracted by predatory businesses, and that is a real problem. And the solution to it is not destroying the market, but creating a culture that starts focusing more on long-term thinking. I mean, this is my life's mission now, and I don't know exactly how to accomplish it, but the first thing you do is by talking about it and explaining to people how they're being manipulated. There was a wonderful, and this was one study, I don't know how accurate it is, but they wanted to help teens eat right, do better, and they found that the girls were uniquely susceptible to, eat this stuff and you'll look good or whatever. But you could go to the boys and say, the man is trying to distract you. They're trying to feed you bad food. Fight back against the man. And, that's a kind of less subtle way of saying, don't let those people out there manipulate you. And that requires helping kids understand being more self-aware, so that when you were in your bedroom watching TikTok, you might have noticed sooner, if you sort of heard it somewhere, oh, this thing is trying to make me do stuff I don't really want. They're trying to make money off me. They're trying to keep me locked up in my room instead of doing all the things you talked about later.
Is this
What
on?
what would be helpful? What's your perspective?
I mean, from my personal experience, like I said, I kind of went through my whole addiction through COVID. I have started taking social media breaks. I'm currently on one, so I don't really struggle with obsessive social media usage anymore, but I do know a lot of kids who do who are like really, really, really obsessed with TikTok. And I think I'm just gonna like repeat what I kind of said before. You kind of just have to like look for the things that the kids do like, and then find ways to help them through those things. And I also think that letting kids talk to other kids and see what they're going through also helps. I mean, I'm starting a club that's kind of like, that kind of centralizes around that idea of like kids coming to other kids and talking about what they're stressed about, what they're feeling anxious about, or all these other things in my school. So I think maybe implementing that in other ways and other places would be helpful as well. Like just having kids come together, maybe in a small place or a small room with some comfortable music, some comfortable pillows, maybe a comfortable chair or so, some games, and just let them be kids. I feel like in this society, it's very hard to be a kid. Like honestly, I'm 15 now and I'm struggling with it. I mean, I am bombarded with schoolwork, bombarded with homework. I go to sleep at like 11. Hey, I get yelled at for going to sleep at 11 because I have to wake up early, but it's not really giving me time for a life. And I think teens would probably appreciate just like spaces more that are either really open, that they can speak to each other about their problems and also like finding other spaces in which like they can watch productive things. I promise you, no kid wants to watch nonsense for hours. I don't. Even when I watch Netflix for hours, I kind of get tired of it at some point. Even when I have my Instagram open, I have my Instagram Reels open, I get tired of it at some point. It's just that, like Esther was saying, it's easy to get addicted to those things. So just finding ways to like let kids, I don't know, I guess, have a space away from that where they can actually talk about the things that they're going through, or maybe even just like have a space where they can just maybe sit in silence with some kids and not look at social media. I don't know what kids, like certain kids like to do. Everybody has different personalities. Some people might be introverts and they just want to sit in silence with other people. Some people might be extroverts and they might want to talk with other people, but having those spaces and having productive spaces on social media sites, especially really well used ones, really well known ones, are one of the most important things. That's just my suggestion.
So, just briefly, you mentioned being 15.
Yes.
All that, would you rather be 12 or 18? Or, is it going to get better or worse?
That's a great question. I would honestly like to be neither. I would like to go back into the womb. I don't want to deal with these problems. I'm sorry. The world is so complicated. It's so challenging. Like, I remember when I was a toddler, I didn't have to worry about no homework, no making sure everybody's okay. I mean, I do want to make sure that kids are okay and stuff, like other people are okay, but like, it's a lot. I'm not trying to stay up doing homework at 11 o'clock. I know when I'm 18, I probably have different problems that are a lot worse, and I'll be looking back at this and be like, dang, I wish I appreciated them times. And then guess what? I'll be 21, and I'll be like, dang, I wish I appreciated them times. And guess what? I'll be 35. Dang, I really wish. And then guess what? It's gonna keep going on and on and on and on. So I mean, I wouldn't really prefer being either. I kind of just, like I said, I want to go back into my mom's womb. Let's figure out some way to make that happen. By the end of next week.
I'm not sure she wants you back in there.
I mean, we could always figure something out. All right.
Whatever. Next question, maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to say it was so great hearing your perspective on social media. I feel we read about it a lot. I have sons 22, 25, so I have some insight to their experience, but it is such an enormous engine and part of our society. One question that kept coming up for me as you spoke was, the negative effect that it had on you. And I just wanted to get some distinction. Is it just that, you're spending all that time on TikTok and it's just like meaningless content? Or is it is there particular types of content that have this really negative effect on you, make you feel really bad about yourself?
I would say it's both. I mean, definitely when I was in my harder times and there was like specific like content about other people going through hard times, like depressive episodes or anxiety episodes. Like I remember when I was on TikTok during that time, I'd seen somebody literally have a panic attack on like a video, and I was going through it. Like I wasn't feeling the greatest as I had been in a long time. So, I mean, that just made me feel even worse. But then I feel like also scrolling through TikTok and watching meaningless videos, it just made everything feel meaningless. I mean, I didn't enjoy watching meaningless videos. It's not like I wanted to stay up for 3-4 hours not doing anything. It's just that I didn't know what else to do. So that made it even worse. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm scrolling on TikTok. I mean, I guess this video is kind of cool. Let me like this video. Let me like this video. It gets repetitive, and it also just, it's not doing anything for my mental health positively. And I've also been grown to be a very hardworking, productive person. I go to a school where productivity is key. And when you're taken away from that space and you're put into a 2-year pandemic, I think the pandemic was like 2 years, right? A year? You have nothing to do. It just deprives you of everything. And then here comes social media giving you something to do that actually means nothing. Guess what? You feel even worse because you actually want to feel like you're doing something productive. You want to feel like you're actually doing something with your time, but then you know that you're not. And then, I mean, I also had like digital school over COVID, and I'd be in school and my grades had dropped because I didn't have enough energy to do my work because I was staying up watching TikTok videos over and over again. There was times where I'd watch like some TikTok videos of like people just like bawling their eyes out, like, and I would go to sleep after like an hour of crying. Like it's not good. It's not proper. That's, yeah.
I'm very interested in finding where the culture is going in the future with this type of focus on social media, the kind of rotating. In previous generations, people were more interested in intellectual pursuits, and because we are social people and group animals, we like to have dialogue and be in social settings. But this whole thing, after COVID, social media has just gone nuts. It has gone to the point where, you know, me being possibly old enough to be your grandmother, but you and I share the same views about TikTok. I found that very interesting. But I would like to know from you, where do you think our culture is going in the future in regards to social media and finding safe spaces where we can be social animals, where we can crave community and interact and explore and discover one another?
So I'm much better at describing the present than predicting the future. And there's really two scenarios. One is we don't fix it, and one way or another we kill ourselves off, which is why we've never discovered extraterrestrial intelligence, because any society that gets sufficiently intelligent starts succumbing to its short-term desires and kills itself. The more positive version is one way or another we realize this, we change our culture. It's, again, you can't really fix this with laws. You can fix it with better education, more evenly distributed. You know, we can't have an underclass that's created by people going back into their own communities and you know, the rich taking care of themselves and leaving the rest of the world uneducated. But what's happened to the education system in this country in the last few years, because of what you were talking about, kids not just not being in school, but sort of being isolated from one another, we need to fix it. It's not a question of, you know, STEM is not the problem. It's actual social values, working together, the social fabric. People need, more than being loved, they need to be needed. And understanding that and sort of changing our social values is what really needs to happen. But that's not a prediction. It's something we need to start thinking about and figuring out how to do it much more broadly as a society. And I think that's the conclusion.
Esther, Raziya, thank you both so very, very much.